Okay, no, that's okay. That's okay. I'm glad that
It's
was my
recording
fault.
now.
Okay, perfect. I paused the recording so we didn't hear the, the blank at the beginning, and then I forgot to unpause it. So glad I put that slide there to remind us that the recording will be posted on our website, on our food systems team website. The recording from from our convening back in October is also on that website. So if you're interested in hearing the presentations and discussion from October, that's there. This one will be recorded and will be up there as well, because I know that there's a number of people that wanted to come today and couldn't make it. Lots of meetings this time of year. So anyway, the recording will be available. So without any further ado, I am going to turn it over to Erin Melton with Kansas Action for Children. And we're going to hear more about their food systems related work at Kansas Action for Children. So, and Erin, you can just let us know when you want us to advance the slide and I can advance it for you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Erin Melton. I am the Food Security Policy Advisor at Kansas Action for Children, and I'm very excited to be here today. So you can go ahead to the next slide. KAC is a nonprofit advocacy organization that is working to make Kansas a place where every child has the opportunity to grow up healthy and thrive. And we do this through partnerships with other organizations. We do this through lobbying and policy work with lawmakers and research and data. And obviously nutritious food access is a huge part of that. And our most recent data, which is from 2018, and I'm sure that this number has increased over the course of the pandemic, shows that 18.4% of Kansas kids sometimes go hungry without enough food in their households. And it is sometimes frustrating living in a state that produces and processes such a large amount of food, and then still having Kansans who struggle to get some food onto the table. And I'm sure that many of you see in your day-to-day work the realities and challenges that families and individuals face just trying to make ends meet and get their basic needs met. Next slide. So a couple of our current efforts to increase food access in Kansas, and these are all at the state policy level. And these are all going on right now as we speak because the legislative session is in process. The first two have to do with the food assistance program and a couple of barriers that are currently in state statute. So one is that food assistance participants are currently required to cooperate with the child support program. And this is a well-intentioned but misguided requirement because a lot of people who are eligible for both SNAP and the child support program already participate in both. There's already a lot of crossover. And the people who don't typically have either informal support arrangements with the non-custodial parent. So maybe they're working a low wage hourly job and they can't make regular payments every month, or they have a broader support system of other family members or other, friends who are helping to support. And this requirement doesn't recognize that, or they're facing a non-custodial parent who is abusive or otherwise dangerous for them and their children. And there is a good cause exception for this under current law, but people typically don't know that that exists unless they've been told by someone, and it adds additional time to the application process. So many people will just not apply at all when they see that that is a requirement. And then the other is that we have a modified ban on Kansans who have drug-related felony convictions. If you have more than one, you're banned for a lifetime. And if you have just one, then you have to submit to a drug treatment program and drug testing in order to regain eligibility. This is not a drug use or crime deterrent. In fact, we have seen in research that areas with stricter bans like this on basic needs programs are correlated with higher poverty. And on the contrary, programs like food assistance and TANF and childcare tend to help reduce recidivism rates by up to 10%. And of course, this ban has a disproportionate impact on Black and Latino Kansans. And just overall, food assistance helps to generate local and statewide economies, because when more people have food assistance benefits, there is more money and more buying power with more people. And then, as everyone I'm sure is aware, there is bipartisan work on getting rid of the statewide food sales tax here in Kansas. We currently have the second highest in the country at 6.5%. And of course, this would benefit all Kansans, but especially those with lower incomes because they're spending a higher portion of their income on this. And there was a hearing on this yesterday in the House Tax Committee on 2 bills. Next slide. So then in the future, I've been here for 5 months at KAC, and I'm hoping that once I have my feet a little bit more wet, I would love to do some work on food deserts and access to food retail in rural Kansas. There is a lot of interest for this across the political spectrum from legislators. And then I think that Kansas could do with some administrative changes to decrease the burdens on people who apply for food assistance and who are going through recertification and things like that. And then there are a couple of other statutory things that could be changed that were implemented through the HOPE Act. One is that Kansas cannot implement broad-based categorical eligibility, which would effectively raise the income limit for food assistance, which would allow people to save while also receiving benefits, which of course increases the anti-poverty aspect of the program and would help with the people who are facing benefit cliffs when they increase their earnings. And then Kansas also currently does not allow the DCF secretary to apply for a waiver for the able-bodied adult without dependent, or ABOD. I see that there is a typo on this slide. Sorry about that. They're currently limited to 3 months of food assistance unless they're meeting a 20-hour-a-week work requirement. And some states can request a waiver from the USDA in times of high unemployment. Currently, Kansas cannot do that, and I think that would be a huge help. Next slide. That is all I have. I know I talked really fast and tried to fit a lot in there, so I'm happy to answer any questions or talk further. And my email is on the slide, and please feel free to reach out at any time to connect.
Thanks so much, Erin. I appreciate it. Does anybody have a quick question for Erin? And then we can go to the next speaker, but we can ask more questions later too. But I know one question I have, if you don't mind, Erin, unless somebody else had somebody else unmute. Okay. One question I had, can you give us more details about the sales tax elimination? Like, would it be like, what happens with sugar sweetened beverages and things like that? If you, and I should probably know these details, but I haven't been following it, so I'm glad you have been.
Yeah, so I will put in the chat later, KAC's fiscal policy director, Emily, wrote a blog post. There are currently 2 bills in the House and 2 bills in the Senate to get rid of the food sales tax that are slightly different. And I will put a link to that in the chat later. That kind of has a grid that explains some of the big differences. But both, from what I understand, if beverages would not be taxed if they're like bought at a grocery store, for example. So anything that you would buy at a grocery store that counts as a food ingredient, which includes non-alcoholic beverages, it would not be taxed. But in one bill, prepared foods will not be tax exempt, and in the other bill, prepared foods will. And I think that there was some confusion yesterday on what counts as prepared foods, but I think it's typically the things that, in the food assistance program, the hot foods that don't qualify. I think that it's that kind of thing. And then of course, if you go to like a restaurant, like if you go to Sonic and get a drink, that would be taxed, that would not be affected. And I did also look specifically after your email at like candy, and in both bills, candy, if it's bought like at a grocery store or something, it would not be taxed. And certain bakery items also wouldn't be taxed, depending, I think, on where you buy them. That's kind of vague, I know, but that's the information I was able to find.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Erin. I know that it's a complicated matter, so yeah, thank you. And yeah, as a mom of 3 kids, I appreciate your work. Anyway, let's go on now to our next speaker here. And now I have to reshare. And of course, my mouse is kind of not behaving real well today. So our next speaker is Paige Olson with Kansas Appleseed. And so Paige, go ahead and take it away with your Kansas apple seeds.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I didn't prepare slides, so you guys get to just hear me talk. So my name is Paige Olson, and I am the Southeast Kansas Thriving Advocate for Kansas Appleseed. Kansas Appleseed is a statewide nonprofit organization that believes that Kansans can work together to build a state full of thriving, inclusive, and just communities. We have 3 campaign areas. We have Thriving, that focuses on anti-hunger advocacy, Inclusive, that focuses on voter rights and engaging voters, and Just, that focuses on a fair justice system and also on the foster care system. So like I said, I am a Thriving Advocate. So my work is anti-hunger based, and I represent Southeast Kansas. I just started a month ago, so I am new to Kansas Appleseed, but I'm not new to anti-hunger advocacy. The Thriving team that I work with, we've recently, about a month before I started working, established regional hunger action teams across the state of Kansas that meet on a monthly basis. In these meetings, we discuss different barriers that each region faces and what we can do to overcome these barriers. These obstacles range from easy to tackle issues such as SNAP outreach and training on SNAP applications so that we can better help their communities, to barriers that will require a lot of work, like lack of transportation in rural communities and food deserts. But these groups are amazing, and they are full of very motivated people that want to do everything they can to make sure Kansans are fed. And if any of you are interested in joining any of our regional meetings, feel free to send me an email and I can send you more information. We are actually meeting with Southwest Kansas this afternoon at 2 p.m. So if anyone wants to hop onto that, I can send you the information. Another thing that the Thriving team is working on is a lot of what Aaron said. So we're working on eliminating the drug felony ban for SNAP and the child support requirement for SNAP. And we've been gathering testimony and speaking with organizations and impacted people to make sure that these aspects of the HOPE Act are repealed. We are also working to eliminate the state food sales tax. And that's kind of our work. I could get into the stuff, but Aaron really went into what those bills are. And that's really what we're really focusing right now during legislative session. And we've really been working on that. So I guess if you have any questions, I didn't use up all of my 5 minutes, so.
Great. Oh. Sorry, that was me that was causing that echo. Anyone have any questions for Paige? And thank you, Paige, for joining. I knew that you had started recently, but I didn't realize how recently you started. And Aaron, I know you started very recently also. So thank you for jumping in right away. Anybody have any questions for Paige?
I did have a question for Paige, and I think it was some connections I made before, but at Cuts Covered, we worked with Kansas Appleseed to host like a training for folks interested in learning how to help others apply for SNAP. Is that something that you're all still working on, or that community organizations could get connected with?
Yes, absolutely. We're working. We really want to make sure that we have a lot of people trained on SNAP and that we ourselves are trained. We kind of went through a training with someone recently and they walked us through it. But I mean, one time going through it is probably not enough to learn just how that all works. So yes, we are absolutely interested in all of that.
Great. Thank you very much, Paige. Any other questions for Paige?
Paige, I work with SNAP, sorry, I'll turn my camera on here. I work with SNAP-Ed, and I was wondering, what is your, what's the resource for how to access the people who are helping fill out those applications?
Right now, we don't really have a lot of resources. I mean, so I work with Humanity House here in Iola, Kansas. And so, in fact, that's my office is in the front part of that. So we had Georgia Masterson kind of teach us how to walk through it. And she does a lot of applications here. So I know that we want to like get people together so that we can go to like farmers markets and do some application there. I don't know if that answered your question.
I was hoping that there's a clearinghouse, a website, some place where we can say like, oh, in Pittsburgh, you can go here, in Iola, you can go there. You know, is there a resource for that that I don't know of? I shouldn't say we.
Not that I'm aware of. No, I think that that's an excellent idea. But I also like, and there could be, I've only been here a month, so I might not know that information, but not that I've been made aware of at this point.
It seems to be a moving target for, for something that is something we get regular requests for. We aren't allowed
Yes.
to help with, but it would be nice if there was some sort of clearinghouse or whatever, of everyone's efforts that are helping with that. So
I absolutely agree.
Erin shaking her head, so maybe we
Yes.
can get together later on something.
Sorry to jump in. I don't know that there's like of any, list of resources, but from the meetings that I've had so far, it sounds like a lot of food pantries have SNAP assisters. I don't know if that is a state, like every single one does, but I think that a lot of them do, which is helpful, maybe.
Thanks, Erin.
Great, thank you. And I see there's some good discussion in the chat too. And thanks, Erin, for sharing that, the food sales tax bills, the blog on that. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, and there's some other good, Paige, there's a question from Janelle. Do you want to answer that? And then we'll go to our next speaker. You see that one?
Yes, yes, you can absolutely, if someone is is requesting for assistance, we would love to help work through that. So yes, you can direct them to Kansas Appleseed and to our Thriving campaign.
Great, thank you very much. And if anybody has questions for the speakers after our comments on the topics that they brought up, feel free to put them in the chat or we can discuss more later. But we do want to go on to our next speaker so that we have time to get to everybody. And so we're kind of shifting gears a little bit. We've kind of talked a little bit about anti-hunger work, which is great. And thinking about the kind of the broad spectrum of local food systems. So Imogene, I hope I got the name correct this time. Oops, I'm going to share my screen again here. So hopefully you can see the screen, and Imogene, take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm Imogene Harris with Network Kansas. I'm our VP of Impact Investment Services. Yes, a little bit different work. So Network Kansas is really, our organization is about connecting small businesses to different resources across the state. So whether that's like we say education, expertise, or economics, which means funding, right? So our main role sort of in this space is making those connections and then being a partner, one of the partners of the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative. That's really sort of our main road into this specific space. And then also just aside from the KHFI funding, Network Kansas has some other funding programs that sometimes play a role in helping get some projects done. Specifically, a lot of what we've worked with, both through KHFI and sort of Network Kansas over here, is a lot of rural retail, so rural grocers. But certainly through KHFI, we have done some other projects that have helped growers and producers directly, or even like some farmers markets too. But I think mostly there's really been sort of just the rural grocers, as if you were to look at our portfolio, would be the main group. You can go to the next slide there. So here you can see the purple counties are where we've actually received applications from for KHFI. So that's like for funding assistance. But the reach, they can, groups or individuals can also reach out to KHFI for like just connections and technical assistance. And that reach has been much broader than the highlighted counties you see here. And I know some of my partner peers from K-State and IFF are on here too, and they would probably be able to tell you more specifically just how wide that reach is. I mean, there is definitely a need and demand for folks looking for just any kind of assistance of variety of things of related to, you know, food systems and healthy food access. But that just gives you an idea of sort of where our reach has been for the last, I think we're going on 4 years now of this program. Next slide. So yeah, I didn't have a lot. Mostly I just wanted to say this is also just our sort of general Network Kansas information for anybody, whether they want to start with KHFI. If you kind of forget that, you can go to Network Kansas, whatever, we'll get you around to where you need to go. But yeah, really with Network Kansas, it's just sort of that connections. You know, again, if folks, whether it's a business owner or even different partner organizations like yourself, and you're not really sure where to go, you could start at Network Kansas. You could start with the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative to sort of help figure out where to get connected to based on what, you know, your need is. And then also our funding program. So if you have projects in mind, like, you know, a rural grocer, like maybe there's a producer or a farmer's market, we can certainly have some conversations around what that might be too. So.
Great, thank you very much, Imogene. Anybody have any questions for her? I'll ask a question, Imogene. So if, I guess, in a way, it seems like Network Kansas, I mean, obviously by your name, you know, the idea is to network people together. So if there's, you know, anyone that's interested in, and it sounds like any food related type of business, whether it's a grocery store or they want to start selling salsa or whatever it might be, or if they want to start growing more different crops or something like that, like, so you can help them kind of network to resources that might be available in terms of funding, as well as in terms of just other resources as well, technical assistance type resources.
Yes, yeah, we can certainly do that. I think I will say, I think when it comes to sort of this space, I think my friends over at K-State are probably a little bit more well-versed in the sort of food system specific resources. Ours might be a little bit helpful, but a little bit more broad, like building a business plan or, you know, connecting with your local economic or community development folks. So while that's helpful, when you get into the more niche stuff, I think it honestly, what we would probably do is direct them to K-State to say, hey, have you talked to them? They might know some other resources too. So I just want to be open about that.
Great, thank you. No, that's very helpful. Any other questions or comments? I have to say, and I'll ask you separately, I'm curious if there's like a Network Missouri too, but I don't think there's quite the equivalent of that. Anyway, that's for the other side of my job. So, but it sounds like a great resource. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you for the invite for today.
All right. So if you don't have any other questions, we'll go, and again, you can put it in the chat as well if you have questions, but we'll go to our next presenter here, Candace Shoemaker with, and by the way, I just saw Erin's picture pop up and I forgot to introduce my co-host today, Erin Bishop. So Erin, thank you so much for helping today. Erin is she's also on our local foods team at K-State, and she is our Double Up Food Bucks program coordinator in Kansas. So we're really glad to have her with K-State. So we're glad to have her here today. Thanks. So Candace Shoemaker is going to talk about the Urban Food Systems Initiative at Kansas State University. So go ahead, Candace.
Thanks, Lana. I want to first say thanks to the other three speakers to share what they're doing. I really enjoy hearing the statewide efforts that are being made as it relates to, especially to food access. So thank you. So mine is very different as well. I'm a professor at K-State in our Urban Food Systems program. And I was asked to talk about a new certificate that we just launched this semester. But before I do that, I wanted to just give a little bit of background information on the work that we're doing in urban food systems. So next slide, please. So this whole effort began in, well, a little bit before 2011, but it was launched in 2011 with a graduate program that was a specialization in urban food systems within the master's program in horticulture and natural resources. And we had some early success. I think probably the first big step was 2 years later, the K-State Olathe campus opened, and we got approval to offer that degree on that campus as well. And, you know, some of you may even wonder why we're doing urban food systems if we're in Kansas and with Kansas agriculture. We still get that question even 10 years down the road, both here in Kansas as well as when we talk about this around the country and around the world, because we definitely are known for our beef and wheat here in Kansas. But if you think about it, where do most of the people in Kansas live? And they live in urban centers, and food access, you know, has dramatically changed and will continue to change. And our food systems will continue to change as we become more and more urbanized. So we didn't know this when we started, but this is very relevant, and it becomes more and more relevant. We now have 6 core faculty that really represent all the activities of the food system. So when we talk about the activities, it's really the food supply chain, right? So from the producer all the way to the consumer. It's not really all those outcomes and drivers of that food chain, but across all the faculty. Londa is one of our core faculty as well. And then we have 19 affiliated faculty across almost every college at the university. So it's definitely an interdisciplinary effort. And one of the things that I'm really proud of for the initiative is that we work across all 3 mission areas. So we really have focus on and planning to continue to grow work in all 3 areas. So we started in teaching because it was a graduate program. Of course, we had research with our graduate students. And then because some of the faculty have extension appointments, we then encompassed extension. So we have that across all 3 areas. The floating bubbles in the middle are the areas of research expertise we currently have. Protected cultivation, produce quality and food safety, community food systems, teaching pedagogy, and that teaching pedagogy is both in terms of graduate education methodology, but also in terms of training farmers and extension educators and not-for-profit educators, and then regenerative agriculture. And then in our outreach and extension, I just wanted to highlight some of the things we're particularly proud of. We've been doing a webinar series for a couple of years now. And I guess, you know, we've been in COVID now for long enough that we're really pulling on identifying those positive parts of COVID. And one of them is having successful webinar series. So the Gaining Ground webinar series is really targeted to educators, extension educators, and not-for-profit educators. But we also have farmers that attend those. We started before COVID a film series on the K-State Olathe campus that would feature different films about food. And then we would have a panel of experts and do a discussion after viewing the film. We haven't done that since COVID, but we hope to be able to launch that again in a year or 2. And then I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Growing Growers program in Kansas City, and then we have one in Wichita now. And then the Extension Food Safety site that Londa develops and a lot of her programming comes out of. And then our Urban Food Systems Symposium. And we are in the midst of planning our next one. Our first one was in 2016, and our next one is this coming September, and we're hoping that we can do it face-to-face in Kansas City. So I hope a lot of you will participate in that. The call for abstracts just came out, and I'll post the website for that in the chat afterwards. So I've probably used my 5 minutes up, and I haven't gotten to the certificate. So next slide, Londa. So as I said, we just launched an interdisciplinary graduate certificate. It is 12 credits. It's for both current graduate students at K-State, but also non-degree students. So students are people that just want to learn more about urban food systems, can just get this certificate. And the core courses, which are 6 credits and are listed here, are all online courses. And then you have to take the 6 core courses, and then you get to take 6 elective courses. And those elective courses are within 3 categories: plant and agricultural sciences, leadership and management, and sociology, economics, and health. And amongst all of those electives, and I see I didn't put the website up here, so I'll get that and post that in the chat as well. A good number of them are online as well. So it is possible to complete the certificate with 100% of your courses online. But if you're in Olathe or if you're in Manhattan or nearby, then you have a broader choice of courses, because some of them are just face-to-face. And as I said, we just launched it this semester with our urban food systems course. So, and that's all I've got. So, thanks.
Great, thank you, Candace. Does anybody have any questions for Candace? And this is the website of the symposium. We'll get the URL in the chat. Great. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can check what's, oh, okay. Thank you, Marlon. So Marlon put the call for abstracts in the chat, thank you. So yeah, and the call for abstracts, for some of you that may not be, how do I say, you're not an academic or whatever, we really intend the call for abstracts to be not just for, academic type people. I mean, we really want to hear what practitioners on the ground are doing as well. So, we really would love to hear presentations from, number of different people that are working anything related to urban food systems. And hopefully our call today, this meeting today shows, kind of the breadth of food systems, from food access to helping food businesses and having a certificate program that's available. We're trying to show the breadth of what food systems is about, from production to access and consumption and processing, everything in between. So, and Aaron asked a good question here in the chat. Actually, Aaron Bishop is probably a good person to answer that question. Or Aaron, are you comfortable to answer that question?
Yep, I'm gonna read it real fast here.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
So not all farmers markets are equipped to take or to accept SNAP. I mean, they could be. It's an application process with the USDA. And so that application process is for an FNS number. And that FNS says that you can accept SNAP. There's programs out there to assist with the application process. Of course, we can help on this side, but MarketLink, which is a organization for a grant program, can also help. And MarketLink provides farmers markets and direct to consumer sales, an application on their phone to accept SNAP. So there is a cost to being able to accept those cards. But the Total Pay Go app through the MarketLink grant is probably the most affordable, and it is the first year for free. So there's other costs involved and requirements to get that up and going, but it would be the first step is to apply to get approved.
Yeah. I'll just say briefly too, I see our colleagues, I see Lana Dominguez is on the call today too. She's with Cultivate KC and Cultivate KC takes care of the Double Up Food Bucks program in the Kansas City metro area. And then K-State Extension implements the Double Up Food Bucks program in the rest of Kansas. So if you have farmers markets that are interested in getting being able to accept SNAP is the first step. And then once they can accept SNAP, then the second step is they can get involved in Double Up Food Bucks. So So Lana can help with markets in the Kansas City metro area, and then Aaron can help with markets that are outside of the Kansas City metro. But yeah, great question. And I will say too, that we are having a webinar, which is on the agenda in a little bit here. We are having a webinar, and actually I'll probably go back to the slides here. The webinar, I can't remember off the top of my head, I think it's on Tuesday, right, Aaron Bishop?
I think it's Thursday.
Okay, Thursday, never mind, sorry.
Or hope, I'll look at my calendar again. It's on my
Yeah.
calendar for Thursday.
Okay, perfect. And yes, it is Thursday. I was gonna say Janelle could help me too, but yes, so Thursday, February 3rd, as part of our series, and again, I have a slide on it, but KDA and K-State Extension work together to do a farmers market vendor / direct to consumer marketing webinar series. And that's all next week. So January 31 through February 4. And then there will be a presentation specifically from MarketLink on how to accept SNAP at farmers markets, and then on Double Up Food Bucks on February 3rd. So they're from noon to 1. So we will, and like I said, I have a slide on that here in a minute. So, and great, Candace put the link in there for their webinar series as well. So yeah, lots of good resources. Thanks everybody for sharing. All right. So I'm going to go back to our agenda. And if you have questions for any of the speakers, now I see another thing in the chat there, but if you have questions for the speakers, please feel free to jump in or to put it in the chat, and we'll make sure that your questions get answered, and help share the word about these different organizations. I think for me personally, this is part of the reason why we're doing this virtual town hall series is, each organization has different things that it can and can't do, and things that, are kind of more in our wheelhouse or less in our wheelhouse. And so that's why it's great to partner with others, that we can, that something is in their wheelhouse, and we can, work together and learn more about what each other are doing and have resources for. So, back to the agenda. So I do want to give a brief update about the Regional Food Systems Program grant that we, that K-State Extension led on. But first I did want to just really briefly give you a little background. I talked about this in our last virtual town hall, but just really briefly. And as I mentioned earlier, K-State Extension does have a local food systems team, which started back in, our first meeting was during COVID. I remember I was in my closet because the kids were all home and it was like super loud. It was March of 2020. Life was very chaotic. But anyway, that's when we started our local food systems team. And we've had some transitions on our team as well. A number of people have moved to other opportunities. So currently the leadership of the team is myself and Rebecca McMahon. And Rebecca can't be here today, unfortunately, due to some family health issues, but we do have 3 sub-teams as part of our local food systems team. So the community engagement sub-team is one that I'm leading with a number of great other people, Aaron and others that are on the call today. So this is one of the initiatives of our subgroup. And then Erica Blair with the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative, and she presented last quarter. She heads our economic opportunity subgroup. Tom Buller was there previously, but now he's moved on to another opportunity. So we're working kind of in that area as well. And then internal capacity building is now led by Rebecca McMahon. So and our team website is listed there, so you can see some more information about our team. I know I talked about that last quarter too, but just wanted to give a brief background and just to mention that we've had a lot of transitions as well. So some of the so again, last quarter I talked about that grant. Some of you might not have been on, but we did submit a grant, a regional food systems program planning grant. And I think I saw Eileen Horn on here too. We had a lot of great help with the proposal. So unfortunately, we were not selected for funding. We did get some great comments, and I put some of them listed there. And we would just briefly, the proposal was to look at kind of different buckets. So we had one on infrastructure, one on capacity building or training, and one on funding, and then policy. And And so you can see the comments again that we had. You know, the first one, it's interesting because I know some of our colleagues did say to us, you know, why don't we apply for an implementation grant? And when we looked at the RFP from USDA, we felt like the RFP was quite clear that they really wanted very detailed planning done before you could apply for an implementation grant. And so that's why we applied for a planning grant. And then it turns out that the reviewers felt like we'd already done some planning and could have moved to implementation. So that's one comment that we received. We included a part-time, like a half-time person to for leadership of the project. And that was another comment that they felt like it would be good to have a full-time person involved there. So within KSRE, we're discussing next steps, and we really do want to open up the discussion if anyone is interested in being part of a small group to kind of look closer at future grant opportunities to fund this type of work that we're talking about. We would love to, we would love to discuss more. So if anybody is interested, my email's there in the chat, or not, well, maybe somebody will put it in the chat for you, but my email's there on the slide. So you could feel free to email me if you're interested. Because like we talked about, having partnerships is so important, and we really do appreciate the different aspects of the local food systems that you all bring to the table. So, so any questions on that or any comments? And like I said, if you're interested in kind of having a smaller group discussion, we would appreciate your input. So. All right, great. So the next thing on our agenda for today is brief announcements of upcoming relevant local food systems events. And I will kick us off, and then we're going to open it up to anybody else that's interested in sharing any other announcements they have related to local food systems events. So as I mentioned, K-State and KDA have been working together every year since, I believe, 2014. So back before COVID, we used to do these in person, and now we do them virtually, but we're having a webinar series next week. There's the website there if you're interested in more information, or if you know of anybody that might be interested in registering. It's only $5 to join, so we really want to make it as affordable as possible. So we're going to be covering a number of different topics. Again, that website lists the agenda, and you can see, so SNAP and Double Up Food Bucks is one thing that will be covered. The Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program training will also be covered. We'll have regulatory presentations, and then resources available for processed foods. We'll have meat and poultry will be another day, regulations on selling meat and poultry, and then also resources available through K-State for help with meat and poultry processors. We'll have a presentation about sales tax and marketing presentations, and then just some growing vegetable presentations as well. So hopefully lots of great topics there. As Candace mentioned, we do have a number of produce safety related trainings and resources available on our K-State Extension produce safety website. So that's available on that page there. I do want to highlight that morel mushroom identification training is going to be available through K-State. Our colleague Pam Paulson in our Hutchinson County office does a great job teaching morel mushroom certification identification. So those are webinars. Again, we're just charging $5 to help people if they register, that they'll actually attend. Those are March 16 or 17. It's a 1 hour training if you're interested in that. There's a number of other local activities that are occurring in K-State Extension. I just listed a few, but the other thing I'll mention before I open it up to anybody else that wants to make any announcements is so the Kansas Rural Center, and I don't know if anybody from the Rural Center is on today. I know Tom said he had another meeting he had to join at the same time. But the Kansas Rural Center has convened a group, and Barb Depew is part of that. I saw Barb is on, and K-State Extension, and I know a number of others are also in that group, looking at farm to school in Kansas. And so we are really excited that we have a survey to share with school food service personnel, and then also a separate survey for producers to gain to gain information about what are the barriers to more people participating in farm to school in Kansas. So the survey is really intended to just kind of find out who's doing what and really what are the barriers to increasing the number of local foods in our local schools. So so we really encourage people, and this is very hot off the press. I think it's just been finished in the last day or so. So we'll be sending out more information about it, but really do encourage people to share that survey to get more responses so we can develop materials to help increase the number of local foods in our local schools in Kansas. So, all right. So with that, does anybody else want to share some announcements from your organization of things that you're doing? And I'm going to turn the share off and I can check the chat. Great. I see lots of good stuff coming into the chat. Yeah. Great. Glad people are looking forward to the webinar. And yes, the good old days when we used to do things in person. And thanks for putting the sign up link in there, Janelle. Yes, Erica.
Yeah, hi everybody. I just wanted to share a couple upcoming events and programs that the Rural Grocery Initiative is hosting. So the first thing is the Rural Grocery Succession Planning webinar series. So this webinar series is really trying to answer this question, when a grocery store owner is ready to move on, whether they're retiring or they're moving on to a different endeavor, who in the community or who could step up and take over ownership of that grocery store. And we have seen this as a really important issue in rural communities, because when there isn't a successor for the grocery store, what often ends up happening is the grocery store will just close, and then that's not good news for the business owner financially. It's also not good news for the community, because now they're lacking a really important source of food. So this webinar series is kind of demystifying this process of business transition planning. What are the different steps involved? How do you go about this? What's the timeline? Who can help? So we had our first webinar January 20th, and the next webinar will be on February 17th. So these will be held every third Thursday throughout 2022. So definitely encourage you to check that out. I'm going to share the website in the chat to register. And this is not just, for grocers, but other resource providers as well who work closely with grocers. And then the other thing that I wanted to share, we're very excited to be hosting the National Rural Grocery Summit in June of 2022, and it'll be in Wichita, Kansas. And this is another opportunity for rural food access stakeholders to come together and connect and strategize about food access solutions. So registration will be opening soon. So I'll also put a link in the chat to that. We also are accepting proposals for presentations at the summit. So if you would like to share your work at the summit, you can definitely submit a proposal, and those are due February 1st. So thanks, everybody.
Great. Thanks very much, Erica. Brianne, I like the hands up feature, then I can really see easily who wants to speak next. Brianne, please go ahead.
This is such a polite group of people too. It seems like the right group to be hand raising. Hi everyone, Brianne with Cultivate KC. I just want to put another plug in for our annual Farmers and Friends meeting coming up on February 5th. That's 2 Saturdays from now. It's an afternoon virtual event. If you've been in the past, you probably know the format, but it's peer-to-peer education primarily for farmers, food system advocates, and educators, and eaters, lovers of local food. This year's theme is inclusion and adaptation. So we'll be hearing from half of our speakers. We'll be talking about how we're increasing racial diversity in urban growing, particularly in our area. And then the other half are more focused on how we are adapting to climate and working with working in more of these great lessons that we're getting from soil health and how that can be transferred to an urban environment as well. And then I'm very excited, our guest keynote is Sean Sherman from the Sous Chef, the group up in Minneapolis. And that is a nonprofit that's working to revitalize and reinvigorate Native American cuisine and traditions. And he will be talking to us briefly about their work and some of the history of USDA policy that led to where we are now and where they're hoping to go from there. So I'll throw that in the chat. $5 registration. Again, that's really just to get you in the door. And then if you register, we will make all those videos available afterwards if you're not able to attend on a Saturday.
I think I'm next, so I'm gonna go.
Go ahead. Sorry. My mouse isn't working. It's so frustrating. Go ahead.
So a couple of legislative updates. Today, actually, thanks to the work of the folks at Kansas Appleseed, there is a hearing on House Bill 2215, which would get rid of that modified ban on people with drug-related felony convictions in Kansas, which is extremely exciting. I think that would be amazing if it were to pass. So very excited about that. And there was a bill introduced last week that has a hearing coming up soon. It's House Bill 2525 that would get rid of the child support cooperation requirement for food assistance and for childcare assistance in Kansas, and would also adjust some of the work requirements for childcare assistance for parents who are pursuing education and training. And the testimony for that is due soon. And if anyone is interested in providing written testimony in favor of that, please let me know. The more the merrier. I'll put my email in the chat just one more time, just in case anyone's interested.
Great. Thanks. Now my mouse is working, Erin. Sorry, it just wasn't working before you. Tori, you're next.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tori Laird. I'm the economist here at Kansas Department of Agriculture. You may also know me as the Special Crop Block Grant Administrator around here. Sorry for all the emails. But I had a side announcement / call for help. This last year, I was chosen as a Bayer Youth Ag Summit delegate for the state of Kansas. And I am one of 6 US delegates and 100 from around the world that have been chosen to come together to discuss food systems and the question of how do we feed a hungry planet. The summit was this past November, and I applied for the program with a project idea around food deserts in Kansas, of trying to come up with a data system to help inform decisions on how to address these. And right now I'm in the midst of an incubator program as part of the Youth Ag Summit. It's 10 weeks where I'm diving into this idea and developing it in order to pitch it at the end for a pitch competition for 2 weeks for opportunities for grants, network opportunities, and whatnot. But what I need right now, and Londa, I'll probably follow up with you at some point in the next week, but I'm currently looking for as much data as I can have on food deserts in Kansas. I'm trying to understand what people already know about them, what people are doing about it, and what organizations or projects are already having a hand in the solution. Just trying to understand what the current status is on understanding food deserts in Kansas. So I will put my email in the chat. Londa, I'll also follow up with you later, and probably Rebecca, because I know you guys are heavily involved in this area. But if you guys have any opportunities or know of any information that could be useful to me while I'm building this project pitch, I'd really appreciate it. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I'm really excited to hopefully get to share with you what's going on as a part of it. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Tori. And there's a lot of people on this call that'll know a lot more about food deserts than I will. So I'm super glad this was great timing, because there's a lot of good people on the call that know a lot about food deserts. So that's great. Very cool. Thank you. Barb, please go ahead.
Barb, you're muted, friend.
I just wanted to do a quick share about an event that is happening with Shop Kansas Farms, because there will be a lot of vendor farmers at the event, and also a lot of great presentations. And that is happening in March. And so Rick McNary this is kind of the first kind of event like this, but a great opportunity to talk with producers across the state and to get a lot of great sessions in. So I'll put the link to the information about that in the box. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. My mouse has chosen a very inopportune time to not work. Sorry about that. This has been great, I think. I really have enjoyed hearing from everybody today. And I really, this is exactly what I was hoping for, people to share what's going on, and everybody can learn from each other and find good contacts. With that, I'll put into the chat my email address. If you're interested in having discussions about funding for that grant that we had talked about, feel free to email me. I also put into the chat earlier a link for an evaluation for today. We just want to know if this is helpful for you. If you have suggestions in particular for how we could do things differently in the future, we would love that. We had speakers last quarter, and then we tried to think of other speakers that would be kind of timely topics for this quarter as well. So we're really glad to have lots of, thank you, Erin. So glad to have your input. If you have ideas of other things you'd like to hear or do next quarter, I forgot to put it into the presentation, but if we keep meeting on this quarterly basis, the next one would be on April 27. So we'll probably do the same thing again, where we'll put out an email later with more information, and when we have speakers and so on lined up, or when we have a plan. But yeah, I know a lot of us probably have other calls at 12 o'clock. So thanks everybody, and thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate everybody's joining. Thanks.